Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Sherter. Today I'll be speaking with Mr. Schneider, my physics teacher and friend on the Hilltop. How are you, Mr. Schneider?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Matt.
Let's get into the questioning of this episode. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here is because, at least to me, I feel like you have a lot of fascinating hobbies that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know about you unless, they got the chance to really talk with you or have you in class. What would you say is your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby? Traveling mostly. I like seeing new places.
So then what's the furthest place you've ever visited?
The furthest away I have been was probably Beijing. That was in 2014, I want to say. No, 2015. 2015, as part of a field trip, actually. So I was with a school group there.
Through school. And did you get to experience the nature then more then while you were there, or more city touristing?
That was all. It was mostly city stuff. So it was taking students to see Chinese cultural things. But at one point, we did go on the Great Wall out by Beijing, and you get there, and when you get to the end, you just look out and you just see the rolling hills of China, and it is gorgeous.
And that's back in 2014, so you must have not been at St. Luke's yet then, right?
Right. I was in England then.
That's perfect segue right there then. I wanted to talk about your experience teaching in England because I know you were there for a couple of years.
5 years.
5 years. What was that like? How is it different than teaching, kind of here in the American school system?
They're used to different systems, but the essential nature of school is the same. I mean, kids are kids wherever you go, and physics is physics, but they organize things very differently. So they're very test heavy. The one thing I wanted to see was how do people take science in a different country, and I'm used to here you take biology, then chemistry, then physics normally. There they take them simultaneously, and they take them over the span of a couple of years, and then they have a big national exam on all their subjects. So they'll take all the subjects they're going to take all simultaneously. But they don't have any science electives generally, not the places that I was teaching. So there's no geoscience, there's no marine science, there's no environmental science. It was the big three, essentially biochemistry and physics.
That's true, but clearly a big emphasis on the sciences in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Would you say you had better English physics students then when you were teaching over there compared to American? Or?
No, different. Just different. For them, advanced physics is a 2-year course, and they take a lot of time to do it. So they cover absolutely everything. So one of my big things as a teacher, I had to learn how to make sure I told them what to write down. I needed to make sure they had good notes by the time they left my class.
So then when you came back from England, you came right to St. Luke's, right? You didn't teach anywhere in between?
Yeah, St. Luke's found me over there. I put my resume on a single website just to start my research, and it was about 2 weeks later that Miss Perry sent me an email, and one thing led to another, and now I'm here.
Oh, wow. So then what was the biggest driving force that attracted you to St. Luke's then?
Well, when I came here, I still remember that I had a great time. Just obviously the science department is one of my favorite groups of people I've ever worked with. They're just fantastic. And so that was an easy sell, and it was fun teaching everybody. And I remember getting a tour from Kendall Bogey, that's who it was. And so she was showing me all around and that sort of thing. And I just commented on the fact that all the lockers were open. I said, isn't anybody afraid someone's going to come out and swipe things from their locker? And she looked at me, she said, no, why would anyone do that? And I thought, that's so cool. Whether she's living in a dream world or not, I want to teach in a place where people live in that dream world. That sounds fun.
So then now that you've been teaching here for the last, what is this now, like 5 years or so?
And this is my 4th year.
4th year. So then what's become your favorite thing about St. Luke's?
Oh, goodness. I'm not sure you can pin it down to a favorite thing, but I really think that the science department here is one of the best departments I've ever worked with. Probably the best department I've ever worked with in any of my schools.
So then let's zone in to specifically the teaching aspect. What's your favorite concept to teach in class, whether it's physics or you teach geoscience too, correct?
I do. Space. I love space. I'll bring space into as many things as I can.
That's great. So then what's your craziest space theory then? Like, do you think there are aliens living out there? Or?
I've never met any. No, I would say it's it's pretty likely that there is life out there somewhere. I sincerely doubt they have visited Iowa just to mark up the farmland, but it's worth looking.
So then what do you think is the craziest thing about space in general, though, whether proven or potential?
To me, it's so inspiringly big and beautiful. It doesn't take much to get people interested in the night sky, and when you look up at something like something even as close as the sun, you're not seeing it. You're seeing it 8 minutes ago. You're seeing a picture of what it was like 8 minutes ago. Even the closest stars Alpha Centauri, the Alpha Centauri system, and it's 4 light years away. So you're seeing what it looked like 4 years ago. I just love the fact that just looking up is literally looking back in time. It's fascinating to me.
So then how did you really get into it? What was the driving factor there?
Getting into space?
Yes.
It wasn't hard. I was into it when I was a kid. It was my first book. I still remember that. My first book was literally called My First Book of Astronomy when I was like 6. And I just, I gobbled up everything space back then. NASA stuff and space shuttle things. And I thought about being an astronomer for a long time, but I eventually found my passion was in teaching, not in astronomy.
But you always, if you're teaching physics or any, science concept, you can always bring it back to space in the end.
And I normally do. And several of my students know they can get me off track by asking me space questions.
How are we going to approach physics come spring? Are we going to be bringing any space-related things in?
Oh, yeah. We're going to do astrophysics. We're doing Newton's law of gravitation. We're going to do Kepler's laws of planetary motion. It'll show you how to predict exactly how big the sun would have to be a black hole.
That's pretty neat right there.
I hope so.
I guess time will tell. I'll have to let you know when we get to it.
Yeah, we'll follow up on this. Tell me whether or not it was worth it.
Maybe we'll have a part 2. We'll see. I want to talk a little bit about some of your Pittsburgh sports roots, because I know through conversations you're a big fan of whether it's the Pirates, the Steelers.
And the Penguins.
Pirates,
Steelers, Penguins, yeah.
What's the top team then?
At the moment, for me, it's the Penguins and the Pirates. I'm a little bit disappointed in the Steelers. They have too many people I do not care for personally, and the Pirates are very hard to root for. But to me, you don't root for someone because they're good. You root for someone because they represent what you treasure, and I treasure my roots in Pittsburgh. I don't get to choose. I've been lucky that I got to grow up in a town where I get to have 5 Stanley Cups in my lifetime, and I get to have 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, 2 wins and 2 losses. But I also had to go through the Pirates.
That's true. Although they've also had their successes in the past as well.
Yes, their last World Series was when I was 1.
Bring it on, huh? And then now there's the Steelers of the present, not necessarily as good as they've been in the past.
Yeah, the Steelers are about to have some painful years ahead of them. I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to rooting for good people. Like Najee Harris, he's a good guy. I like rooting for him. It's good to have one.
And he has a strong story in the past. It makes it really compelling to watch him. How about like Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool? You like the TikTokers on the team? Or?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all. I would much prefer the people like, you remember Larry Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Larry Fitzgerald's my kind of person to root for. Just a great athlete and does not do a lot of dancing, doesn't do a lot of celebrating. He just does his job and does it with a lot of class. Class never goes out of style.
So then, in your opinion, who's going to become the next Steelers quarterback now that it's looking like Big Ben's going?
Yeah, I have no idea. I assume that they're gonna give the backups another try, but we've looked at Mason Rudolph enough times. He doesn't look like he's got what it takes. But we don't tend to sign a lot of big name free agents. Usually we go to the draft.
Yeah, at least quarterbacks, and I know from my past. And you've been pretty good picking up quarterbacks just from the draft.
Well, we haven't had to in a long time since Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger's been 18 years, man. You drafted him in 2004.
You forget. That's the year I was born.
He has been around a while, and he hasn't had a losing season his entire career. He's never had one.
You do look pretty good now, though, now that you didn't re-sign Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell, now that they've become who they have these days.
Yeah, I was happy to see them go.
You didn't appreciate the triple Bs, or just while you had it on the...
They were thrilling to watch on the field, but again, they were just not the kind of people I like rooting for. And so talent isn't everything. That's a big part of it, but you've got to have some kind of coherence as a team to be able to do much.
Well, I know before recording this podcast, you were working with the theater, the crew,
Yeah.
to help with the play. When did you start working with them? With St. Luke's Productions in specific.
From the beginning. I've always worked with theater my entire teaching career, so I've been doing this for 20 years now.
Where's the driving factor in that? How'd you start getting into the theater?
My first year teaching, my best friend that I made then was the director of the plays. I enjoy it, so I stuck with it then, and I've always just kind of stuck with it.
And you work in the technical side of it, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the sound, mostly with the microphones and the sound effects and things.
So then, during your time at St. Luke's, what's been your favorite production to work on?
Ooh, that's a good question. One of the first ones that was a big one that we did was School of Rock. That was a really good production. And one of the things I liked about it was that it was middle schoolers and upper schoolers all together. And my tech crew was Ryan DiFilippo and Liv Woodruff. And they were just fantastic to work with. And that was still early on in my teaching career here. And one of the other ones that I had a lot of fun with, there was a middle school show we did that was called She Kills Monsters. And there were a lot of sound effects that we had to do for that. Lots of sound cues and things of the sort. So I kind of just dove in and did a lot of random little sound effects from video games, because it was all fantasy stuff. So I made all these little video game sound effects in there. I had so much fun. I was reliving my childhood through sound effects.
Have you ever been worried when you're running that you're expecting one sound, but then something else comes out?
Yeah, it happens every now and then. That's why you practice. You practice a lot. I've learned, if you're ever worried about it, then test it. Make absolutely certain that this is going to do what you want it to do. Because you never want to be surprised.
And if it happens, on with the show.
Yeah, that's one of the lovely things about theater. It does teach you how to deal with stressful situations and deal with them productively.
Now, I do want to talk about your photography, because when I was visiting at the beginning of the school year, the art gallery with the teacher exhibits, and I saw your work, I was surprised because I had never known. It was another hobby. I guess I just hadn't known because I hadn't known you. How did you get more into photography?
From traveling. At first, it was just because Mom and Dad always wanted to have pictures from my travels, and so I would take photos. But when I moved over to England, this is a fun story. I lived in a place called Ely, the town of Ely, which was just north of Cambridge, University of Cambridge. But it is a lovely little town, but it is a little town out in the countryside, so there wasn't a whole lot to do socially. And I just looked for whatever kind of social groups were around, and the one thing I found was a photography group. And I showed up and thinking it was just going to be a bunch of people like me learning how to use their cameras, and it turned out that it was a professional photography group. So it was a bunch of local professionals that would get together and do like photo shoots and things of the sort. And I told them, I said, guys, I think I showed up to the wrong meeting. I'm sorry, I don't really even know the settings on my camera. And they were the friendliest group of people. They were like, oh no, you're in the right place, come on over. And they really talked me through it, and just kind of, when I told them, I said, all I really want to do is take better pictures when I'm on vacation. And they gave me little pointers here and there. Try this, and just to make slightly prettier pictures. And again, when you get into going into the national parks, it's hard to take a bad picture out there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's designed to look pretty on your camera.
Yep.
Now, yeah, I am correct in remembering that you like taking pictures more of nature, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you had to recall, like, what was the best picture you've ever taken? What was it of?
My favorite might be the one I got in Iceland when I saw there was a great waterfall, one of many waterfalls there, and I was trying to get this picture of the waterfall itself, and And while I'm setting that whole thing up, I didn't even notice that a bird had swooped down, and I got the shot at the most picturesque spot for this bird. This bird just highlighted itself lovely right in front of the waterfalls, and I thought that is pure luck that I got that bird. But I felt very proud of that.
And I also want to go back to, you were talking about your hiking. That was one of your favorite hobbies you had mentioned. How did you get into hiking? Obviously, it's a good part of nature.
Well, there's something very peaceful about taking a walk. It's something quite simple, and it's just something that's always brought me a lot of peace. And I think one of the biggest things I've always had to work on is ways of calming my mind down. And when things get stressful, how do you calm down? And I found that taking a walk is one of the easiest ways to do it.
I know, living in New England, one of the biggest draws to this geographic region is some of the beauty, the natural beauty, and where we are. From your experience hiking kind of throughout the world, would you say that's true?
Yeah. Oh yeah. New England is gorgeous, and Connecticut is gorgeous. I'm learning more and more about Connecticut as I go through some of the parks. There's a lot of parks around here, and one of the most beautiful that I found as soon as I moved here was Kent Falls. Kent Falls State Park is absolutely gorgeous.
So then now we've talked about hiking, working on the theater, photography, rooting for sports teams in Pittsburgh, space. Lots of different hobbies there. Anything else you see yourself adding to the repertoire of what you already have in your skill set?
Well, like I said, I did minor in philosophy. That's why I like the big ideas. So I do read philosophy every now and then. There's a lot of good practical wisdom from Aristotle, and it's fun reading a book that was written by somebody from 2,500 years ago. Just incorporate it into my classes the same way I do space.
That's true. Physics and geoscience. You can get a little bit of space, a little bit of
philosophy thrown in, maybe a little photography.
Everything. There we go. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me onto your show.
Have a good rest of the day today.
Thank you. You too.